Good afternoon, and welcome to the panel discussion on financing and crowdfunding. My name is Cathy Griffith, and I'll be the moderator for the panel this afternoon. It is our goal today to give you some information and insight on financing options and address advantages and disadvantages of these options, as well as to introduce you to some alternative lenders. I am a lender relations specialist with the Small Business Administration in the Seattle District Office, and it'll be my pleasure to introduce you to these following panelists. Karen Campbell. Karen is the Financial Stability Program Coordinator of SNAP Financial Access. A former entrepreneur, Karen provides technical assistance to increase business sustainability while providing access to hard-to-find capital for startup businesses in Spokane County. She holds a Bachelor's of Science in Health and Human Services and is highly experienced in managing grant compliance and reporting outcomes for programs that deliver services to underserved and marginalized clients. Specializing in food-based businesses, she advises numerous local projects aimed at creating economic equity and coordinates all client personal finance, home ownership, and business development educational opportunities. She also manages donor and grant funder engagement. Next up is Robin Dode. Robin is Vice President, SBA Relationship Manager at Banner Bank. She has been in banking for over 25 years and has an extensive background in all aspects of commercial lending and underwriting. Robin's career started at a large national bank in Los Angeles, where she was a middle market officer until relocating up to the Pacific Northwest in 1997. She is currently an SBA lender with Banner Bank in Seattle, specializing in SBA 7A loans, including business acquisitions, partner buyouts, funding startups, and providing assistance to exporters. And last but certainly not least, Darren Guyaz. Darren is a senior business consultant at Business Impact Northwest, focusing on personalized one-on-one coaching and specializing in marketing, branding, social media, content editing and design, crowdfunding, and creative ventures. He has an MBA in sustainable business, a Master's of Science in Environmental Studies and Writing, and has co-founded 4 businesses over the past 10 years, including a freelance writing photography business, 2 concert production companies, and a touring folk band. So welcome, panelists. Thank you for being here today. You can view the panelists' bios, contact information, and handouts in the speaker portal. Finally, I encourage you to submit your questions via the chat feature, as we will allow time for Q&A at the end of the discussion, as well as try to answer questions during the event. Okay, so let's get started. Panelists, even if the question isn't addressed to you, please feel free to add your input and recommendations. So let's get started. Darren, I thought I would start with you. Can you please give a brief description of your organization and how it provides capital to its clients, especially during this pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Cathy. So I work for Business Impact Northwest, of which there are a couple other kind of institutions and entities that are attached to that, but separate from it, the Washington Women's Business Center and the Veterans Business Outreach Center. And Business Impact Northwest as a whole, we're a nonprofit community development financial institution, so it's a CDFI. And our kind of main mission is to serve underbanked entrepreneurs. So we provide coaching and classes and access to capital for small businesses, with an emphasis on those underserved populations. And we have been in business serving the community since 1997. And so to kind of, the second part of the question, is right now during this pandemic, we provide loans. We provide a variety of different loan products as an alternative lender, including term loans and lines of credit, SBA microloans, SBA 7A guarantee loans, USDA rural microloans, and USDA rural loans.
Wonderful. Thank you, Darren. And your territory, is it the entire state of Washington? I know you've recently expanded into Oregon, right?
Good question. Yeah, exactly. On the lending side, we both work in Washington and Oregon. On the coaching side, we actually also work in Idaho, Alaska, and Montana, based upon the client we're working with.
Wonderful. All right, thank you. And if you are working with a client in Montana or Idaho, are you able to refer them to some financial partners over there if they need funding?
Yes, I believe so.
All right, perfect. All right, thank you. So Robin, you're up next. Can you please give a brief description of Banner Bank and how it provides capital to its clients, especially during the pandemic?
You bet, Cathy, and thank you for having me join you today. I appreciate being on the Access to Capital panel. As Cathy mentioned, my name's Robin, and I'm with Banner Bank. Banner is a commercial bank that was founded in 1890, and today we have more than 190 locations and about 14.4 billion in total assets. The bank's footprint is starting with Washington, Oregon, California, and Idaho. Banner Bank's SBA lending is well known throughout our footprint, as we have received many awards, thank you, Cathy, from the SBA community over the years. Here in Washington, we've been named the SBA Regional Lender of the Year for over 5 years in a row. We're a star performer in Oregon for 4 years in a row. And last, we've received SBA Northern California Regional Lender of the Year for 4 years in a row. I'm also super proud of the role Banner Bank played in the PPP program. During the first half of 2020, the bank funded over 9,000 PPP loans totaling $1.5 billion to the businesses in our footprint. As far as continuing to meet the needs of both prospects and clients, we aren't really differentiating before and after the pandemic, especially in my department with the SBA. We're continuing to review each application based on the merits of that application. One thing we're doing that's new is an extra due diligence, in-depth dive into COVID-19 and how the business is prepared to manage during this time, and doing some additional due diligence around there. The SBA published a list of, we'd like you to include this in your additional due diligence at this time. And so we prepared kind of a client handout to let them know, here are the other things we're going to be looking at right now. The due diligence window is, we really want to determine how well management is addressing, do they need to cut costs? Should they explore another business opportunity or a different sales channel? Something of that nature. And last, the bank does a great job of addressing the smaller business needs. I'm talking about the much smaller ones that may have a loan request of $15,000 to $500,000. We do have a streamlined process that does those smaller loans, plus the SBA Express up to $350,000. And the great thing about that is we can typically give the borrowers an answer in 2 days or so. And then if everything's in place, fund within a week. And so I think that's kind of my overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. And you stole my thunder. I was going to thank you for being our Regional Lender of the Year so many years in a row.
Sorry, Cathy.
We really, here at the SBA, we really appreciate your partnership and your participation too, as well as everyone on the panel, because I hate to say it, shameless plug, both Business Impact Northwest and SNAP Financial Access are great SBA partners as well, which is why we wanted to talk with the audience about alternative lending, because I think we all know out there it's difficult to qualify for conventional lending. Even in the best of time, I used to work at a lender where you practically had to prove you didn't need the money before we would give you a loan. And that's just not really relevant in today's time. We need to find those creative people that can look outside of where we are today and actually see what we're capable of doing. And all three of these lending organizations on this panel have that capability, and that's why they're here. And I was going to say, Robin, I know you're doing a lot of underwriting. You mentioned about, COVID or how they're handling it. You have to address it in any new credit requests during these times. Are you finding that you're relying heavily on other resource partners that help these small businesses with business plans and projections that kind of address that? Are you finding that it probably is very helpful if these clients have gone to SNAP or have gone to Business Impact Northwest and received that technical support before they go and talk to a more conventional lending source?
Oh, I love it when that's happened. Oh my gosh, it's so helpful. Sometimes I start with borrowers that don't know what a balance sheet is, have no idea how to prepare projections. And at the start of those types of conversations, I always ask them to contact SCORE. Or I'm trying to complete blank on the other organization.
Oh, SBDC.
Thank you, the SBDC.
Right. And both SNAP and Business Impact, especially Darren mentioned this, they house a women's business center, which also is a great, provider of support like that.
Perfect.
So, right. Yeah. So thanks for mentioning that, because it is a little more difficult during these times, and you're going to have to address it. When you're talking to someone about needing financing, you're going to have to address, the impact that our current environment has had. And for most of us, it has been adverse. There are a few businesses who have benefited from this environment, but for the most part, it is very important. You have a story to tell about what has happened as a result, but how you think you're going to be able to come out of it and to be successful and to be able to repay these financing loans that you're talking to these lenders about. So thank you, Robin. Appreciate that. And then Karen, so can you please give a brief description of SNAP and how it provides capital to its clients, especially during these times?
Sure. Thanks, Robin. So much like Darren's organization, we are CDFI, work for SNAP Financial Access. Our footprint is a little bit smaller, though, than Business Impact Northwest. We mainly serve Spokane County. We are also a little bit different in that we are a CDFI housed within a community action group. So lots of wraparound services available to our clients to help stabilize the entire household. In addition to loan requests, we look at energy assistance, we look at minor home repair, anything that we can do to help stabilize people's household budgets and their stability at home is really important now more than ever. We do have a women's business center contained within our community action group as well. So we've got a kind of a perfect combination of some programs that are designed to build capacity to get people ready or to serve people that are ready very quickly. So we've got 7 different loan funds. One of them is the SBA Micro Loan Fund. We deal in amounts of $50,000 and below. That's the sweet spot for the SBA borrower. However, we can combine that with any of the other 6 loan funds in order to reach a maximum loan amount of $150,000. So we've kind of got a little niche going there and really working to serve clients in Spokane County. One of the most powerful tools that we have, I think, is the SBA loan combined with our SBA Technical Assistance Program. And that is an entire suite of services that gets opened up and delivered to SBA loan clients as they're getting ready to apply for an SBA loan. Again, that $50,000 or under mark. And then after they receive the loan, we literally do almost anything we can with that grant money to make sure that that business is stable, that they've got the best chance for success, especially in those first few years after funding. That grant is integral to how we deliver our services. So, and during the pandemic, I'm going to have to agree with Robin. There has been, excuse me, very little change really in how we're doing things, except, excuse me, I need some water. Mm-hmm. Except for these kind of more fine-tuned programs. So we've got a special grant that our WBC received that's COVID related. It was quite a large grant, and that goes to help existing businesses explore how to meet the demands of the pandemic. So we're constantly looking at maybe there's a way to diversify their income stream, or maybe there's a way to explore kind of coming at their current business plan at a different point on the supply chain. So we're looking at things like that to help improve the operations of existing businesses. And also maybe somebody started a business plan in January and didn't get to funding. That's kind of a good thing at this point, right?
Yep.
So we're saying, okay, so now what? How are you going to get to funding? Like, you can wait if you want, but let's look at some creative ways about how maybe we could tweak the business plan to get you to funding now, because there are opportunities out there in the marketplace, and we're seeing that with our clients that are amazingly resilient. That combined with those wraparound services are really helping make the difference between maybe us making some loans and not making loans, when we realize that, hey, this family is eligible for energy assistance that's going to reduce their energy burden by X amount for the next few months, so they can afford the loan. And we've got a business plan in place and a reasonable cash flow in order to feel confident about going ahead, especially when we combine it with those SBA technical assistance services. So
yeah, it's a shame that it's just in Spokane County. We would love to have you throughout the entire state. I love that idea of the wraparound. And when I go onto your website and I see all the other services that you offer, home ownership, energy assistance, like you mentioned, it's just really phenomenal. And thank you for mentioning the grant that the Women's Business Centers received. That's true. That was part of the CARES Act. And same thing at Business Impact Northwest. There are women's business centers across the country. So they've been able to, get some steroids to ramp up on the assistance that they're offering small businesses. So thank you for mentioning that, Karen. I appreciate that.
Sure.
So Robin, I was just going to ask you, when should someone seek funding? I mean, what are the signs that maybe it's time? You don't want to wait till it's too late. You want to be a little more proactive about it. So what do you think the signs are if you were looking for funding?
Well, as you said, I stole your thunder. I couldn't concur more, Cathy. Actually, you really don't want to wait until it's too late. Ideally, from my perspective, especially when it comes to short-term working capital needs, I think that a business should apply for that type of kind of open-ended, almost unsecured type credit when they're doing well and when they don't need the money. Once it's in a situation where cash flow is down and perhaps even negative, it does become more difficult to apply for those open-ended types of lines of credit. So it doesn't have to be, wait till you're 3 years old or anything like that. A lot of times at the earlier stages, these are going to be secured, maybe by people's houses or other types of collateral. But yeah, definitely applying for those at the right time is important. And one of the things I like to see is when a business has a well thought out plan, because if you have a plan, then next year I'm going to try and increase my revenues by exporting to South America or whatever it may be. And so talking with your banker up front, knowing that you're going to be doing that and making a plan for how that's going to be financed. To me, that's the signals that it's time to talk to your banker when you have plans for growth and for downsizing too. You may not need the size of line of credit you've had, so why pay more fees on it, that type of thing, if you're downsizing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Robin. And that reminds me too, because anytime a business is contemplating a change, either you're expanding or you are downsizing, or maybe you're planning on getting ready to sell, in the next 2 or 3 years, I think it's real important that you take advantage of the technical assistance that is available to you at either low cost or no cost. And Business Impact Northwest and SNAP, they're both wonderful providers of that. So you don't just get that business plan and then go along your merry way and you never go back. It's very important that as maybe challenges present themselves, or as you are changing the direction that you want your business to go into, that you take advantage and go in there. It's like getting that annual checkup every year. You don't want to wait until, it's too late, or you've gone down this path and now you've got to correct it, and it's going to take you twice as long to get to where you need it to be. So I think that's great advice. And I also wanted to mention that I'm talking about the Women's Business Centers a lot, but we do also at Business Impact Northwest have a Veterans Business Outreach Center. So here it is, Veterans Small Business Month, and we're on the cusp of Veterans Day. So for all you veterans out there, thank you very much. And we do have support for you as well. So my next question, so Karen, for you, can you please tell me how you would advise clients to prepare for a meeting with a lender? What type of information do they have to kind of have gathered together?
Sure, but first I wanted to kind of piggyback on that last, when should you seek funding? I would say early, often, and always, because it's really based on taking advantage of that person at your bank or at your technical assistance provider to work with them. They might be able to see something you can't see. I was working with a borrower the other day and she's like, I have some money saved. And I said, keep that saved. How about, look at this rate that we've got right now. And we don't know what's going to be happening this winter. So we really worked through some of the possibilities, and she ended up saying, you're right. I could use a small loan right now, and it will buttress operations for the winter time. So I think keeping that relationship going, much like Robin was talking about, where you have that relationship, you've got an open door, hopefully with whomever your lender is, and they know you and maybe can help you see things you can't see immediately. So I'm always looking to do that for our SBA clients. So,
well, Karen, I wanted to say you brought up a great point, because I think businesses, there are two very important times where you're taking the most risk. The first one is if you grow too fast. Lots of people think more locations or higher revenue is automatically a sign of success, and that is not the case. You have to really manage that growth very carefully. And the other time is when you underestimate the amount of working capital that your business needs. So it's important, just like Karen was saying, keep that money in savings. Sometimes you need to have a buffer. You need to have, an emergency fund. So thank you for that, Karen. So what do you think a client needs to have to get ready for their first meeting with a lender?
Well, to get ready for a first meeting with us, all you need is an idea, really. Because we do the full spectrum. Like, we get people that come to us with fully formed business plans. They either had the capacity themselves to develop the cash flow, or they've gotten help from SBDC or SCORE. So those are two things we're looking for ultimately to fund, would be a business plan and 3 years of cash projections. But you don't have to. That's the beauty of a place that's both a lender and a technical assistance provider. We've sat in an open room with people like, I have 4 ideas. Okay, so how are we going to figure out which one of those is actually a business and not a hobby? Here's some classes that we have that you can go through. Here's instruction that you can take in a classroom or one-on-one with us about business model canvassing and all kinds of other capacity building things, because sometimes people come to us and they literally have no money to start the business. So we've either got to figure out if the cash flow is going to account for those expenses like an accountant, or are we going to teach you how to do that? So it can vary widely. I would say if you don't have the business plan and the cash flow, come to us anyway and just start pitching ideas, and we'll figure out what is going to be working with your timing, working with your interests. Or do you have another job? Do we have to arrange for something to happen after hours? We've got some online classes. I think, again, the earlier the better. Sometimes we get people that come to us and they don't know they're not ready until we pull their credit report. And then we find some stuff that really needs to be looked at and worked on. And we provide that service as well at Snap. So we've got a lot of kind of things that happen behind the scenes that help get people from application all the way to funding.
That's so important too, to know who you're meeting with and what their requirements are, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, Robin, but I used to work at a bank, and we wouldn't really even talk to a potential borrower unless they had 3 years of personal tax returns, 3 years of business, if available, current personal financial statements, interim financial statements for the business. I mean, they had to come, with quite a large stack of paper, because that was what our credit criteria was. So it's great when you're getting ready to meet with a potential lender, give them a call and say, do you have a checklist? Do you have, what do you need from me, so that I'm not wasting your time, you're not wasting my time. So thank you very much, Karen. So Darren, can we talk a little bit about crowdfunding? I know nothing about crowdfunding. Oh, I shouldn't have said that out loud. Try to fake it until you make it. But can you tell me, talk to me like I don't know anything. You have your audience correct for me, but does it have like different documentation requirements? Is it a first source of financing for a business? I mean, how does it normally work?
Yeah, definitely so. I'm happy to give you some more insight into that, Cathy, and everyone who's listening out there. I also just wanted to also kind of touch upon what you said earlier, mentioning about the Veterans Business Outreach Center, as well as Women's Business Center, because as Karen was mentioning, it is a valuable resource for those when seeking funding, or if they just have an idea, at least a place to start, to have a conversation with a coach and to really get a sense of, what is needed to potentially fund. Is funding necessary? If so, how to do it? But just really getting that, that person you can work with as a mentor, as a coach, I think is valuable. And yeah, and so one of the things that that I do specifically at Business by Northwest, as well as I work with clients predominantly around a certain type of crowdfunding. So to kind of dive in just a little bit more into crowdfunding, there's basically 4 different types of crowdfunding, and that's usually considered your rewards based, such as GoFundMe, your rewards based such as Kickstarter, Indiegogo, your donation based such as GoFundMe, and then equity and debt crowdfunding as well. So I find for the majority of clients that I work with, they're usually headed in the direction of a rewards based crowdfunding campaign, such as Kickstarter or Indiegogo. But basically, the whole idea behind crowdfunding is, you are tapping upon, both friends, family, extended community, potentially even farther beyond, people to kind of, invest money into your business in different ways. Again, it depends upon what type of crowdfunding. With the reward crowdfunding, typically comes from, they give you X amount of money, they get a reward back in return that finances your project or, some component of your business. Equity and debt crowdfunding are a little bit different, but as the names convey, they're more focused on oftentimes some stake of ownership in the.
That's what I was curious about. So I always assumed that crowdfunding, is there always an ownership component or not necessarily? Okay, all right.
Great question. Yeah, so I would say the large majority of folks that we work with at Business Impact Northwest, from a crowdfunding perspective, are much more in the realm of rewards based. So Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or similar type of platform. And with that, there's absolutely no ownership. It can be kind of a complex, lengthy, and time-consuming project, but you actually walk away with not just an increase in capital for your business, for whatever aspect you're trying to raise money for, but also brand awareness. One of the big components of crowdfunding is actually building up awareness about who you are as a business and what you're doing. And so that's kind of like a dual purpose to the crowdfunding component of it. And so I think that's one of the main things to kind of be aware of, if you are a business owner and looking to potentially try a crowdfunding campaign. It kind of comes back to some of the questions that you were asking, Karen and Robin, around, when is there a need and what do you need, right? And, one of the main components, of course, in evaluating that is to look at, what kind of funding do you need, first of all, right? And so, having a business plan, having financial projections, just as if you were applying for a loan, I think can be quite valuable in evaluating your need and whether or not you should or shouldn't do a Kickstarter campaign, for example. Oh, you're muted, Cathy.
Thank you. So do you find most people, though, seek crowdfunding at the beginning of a business venture, or is it during other pieces? And is it a good first source of financing for business? I don't really, why would a business say, okay, I'm not going to talk to a lender. I think I'm going to do crowdfunding instead, or I'm going to attempt crowdfunding instead?
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, again, so much of it depends really on what type of business and what type of products and services that you might be offering for your business. So that, there's not like a right answer per se, but, the example of Ocular, they created like VR goggles, wind up raising, I think it's like 2.5 million or more on Kickstarter. And then like a couple years later, they got bought by Facebook for like 2 billion. And so that's a great example of a crowdfunding campaign that was highly successful. They had a marketing team and a marketing budget. They weren't a complete startup. They had been in business a little bit. So there was a little bit of brand awareness, but they were able to really kind of capitalize upon that without giving up any ownership stake, right? So if they had done, if they sought investment with angels or VCs, for example, or a debt or equity crowdfunding campaign, they would have lost some ownership stake and therefore the revenue for the owners, the ones who created this, would have been a lot less. Mm-hmm. So I think, repeat the first part of the question there, because I think I missed it. That was as a part of the question, but I think I missed the other part.
Well, I'm just saying, I just wonder what stage a business is in that they should think about crowdfunding. And then, but back to you, I just said it was Ocular, I think. So was that the type where it was a rewards type of, I mean, how did they get $2.5 million? I mean, what did they give up for that?
It's basically, so it's rewards based, VR goggles. They had the technology, they had the marketing, they were, very successful in how they kind of approached it. I mean, I could talk about crowdfunding for hours, of course, but like, I think, there's a lot of misunderstandings, that, oh, I can just launch something on Kickstarter and suddenly I raise $50,000 or, a few $100,000. It's usually not the case. So most people will seek crowdfunding when they can't potentially get a loan, when they don't have other sources of funding, when this is one of their only options, because there's a really kind of a low barrier to entry for a crowdfunding campaign, especially rewards based. Mm-hmm. And people will do it, I've seen it from the early stage of the business, to anywhere, from 2 to 5 or even 10 years into a business, when they want to raise funds for a certain aspect of their business. A lot of it depends upon, what kind of outreach they have, what kind of following they have, what kind of, brand awareness do they have, and how does that play into their potential market for tapping into all these, in a sense, individual investors.
So I had an auxiliary question about how do you access crowdfunding? Any recommendations for startup and expanding small businesses? But can someone actually make an appointment with you at Business Impact Northwest and talk about crowdfunding? So you have like a expertise there that actually can address it. Are there popular platforms that people should look into if do some casual research?
Yeah, definitely so. So, I mean, that's one thing that I've kind of become the crowdfunding expert at Business Impact Northwest. I've done 7 campaigns myself, all rewards based. I've done 6 Kickstarter, 1 Indiegogo, and I think that that's kind of where my expertise really lies in terms of how to run a successful campaign. But I think, again, one of the big questions to ask when deciding to do a crowdfunding campaign is, do you want to give up ownership stake or not? That's one of the big questions in terms of what kind of crowdfunding campaign you actually want to run, and how much money do you need to raise is one of the other big components. And of course, the third one is like, if you are trying to raise funds for, a business that doesn't have a very visible product or service offering, then you might want to consider debt or equity crowdfunding or a loan. Versus rewards-based crowdfunding. Because with rewards-based, you really need to have something that, the people who are investing in your business and this project can actually get something back in return.
Right. That makes total sense. Yeah, it's nothing like venture capitalists, where I think you find, people will go out, they usually need more money. I would say venture capital usually is a larger financial need amount, and you're giving up really part of your company in exchange for that. And crowdfunding is not the case. Okay. So great. I was just, I'm not very familiar with it, but it sounds like in some cases it can be wildly successful, and it should be something that business owners should look into.
Yeah. And I think, it just comes with a little bit of caveat in the sense that, people get over ambitious and over optimistic about how much they can actually raise. And I think that's, the value in talking to somebody who has done a campaign before, who knows some of those elements, who can kind of help guide them through little tips and tricks, so they can more likely be successful.
Right. And then I have a question coming in from the chat box for you, Darren. It says, how many users do you need to attract for a successful crowdfunding campaign? Are we talking thousands, hundreds? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely so. So it really depends upon how much you're trying to raise, right? Like Kickstarter, for example, says the average rewards, a donation, but like average reward amounts that people contribute is around $20, $20 to $25. And so, if you think about, you're trying to raise X amount of money, you're trying to raise $10,000, and part of it's doing the math. You'll always get people that contribute more and people will contribute less, but that's the average amount. And so one of the things you really want to consider is, what's the reach of your community in a sense, and that's friends and family. If you have money to invest in a marketing campaign for your crowdfunding campaign, then you can tap into a much wider, breadth of audience that don't even know that you exist, through effective advertising campaigns. But typically, there's not a right amount. It really depends on how much you're trying to raise and what your reach is. And, if you have a lot of wealthy friends that, each throw down $1,000, great. They only need 10, to raise $10,000. But a lot of people, really need, I would say at least 100, 200 or more.
I have a follow-up question. It says, what fraction of a crowdfunding campaign is for marketing and user acquisition versus raising capital? So what do you think?
That really depends upon the campaign. Because it's so individual for every type of business in terms of what portion of that would actually be used, towards marketing. It's not kind of a standard answer across the board for every type of business. Yeah.
Okay. And then another one, how can I set up an appointment with you? Should just calling Business Impact Northwest? I think your email address is on the speaker portal as well. Can people reach out to you directly?
Yeah. So one thing we just require, which is a SBA requirement, is just have all clients, register through our services at Business Impact Northwest. So they can go to our website. They can email me and I can send them that link of where to sign up. It's pretty easy.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Darren. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So let's go over to Robin for the next question. Can you please tell me, since you represent commercial banking on this panel, or SBA, more traditional SBA loans, what are some of the benefits of working with a commercial lender during this time?
Well, I think kind of the benefits of working with a commercial lender are this time or any time. And what differentiates us is that, we're the full service one-stop shop for all of your banking needs. We don't just do business lending. We also have deposit services. We also bank owners of businesses and their employees by providing consumer-oriented products. And then for the business community, we have, not just SBA loans, but regular commercial loans. The bank has a very large affordable housing group that does large affordable housing deals, construction, real estate, development. So a wide variety of different types of industries that we service within the bank. We also provide quite a bit of international banking services, and we have corresponding banking relationships. And we're really good at meeting with people who are just starting to contemplate exporting. And of course, on my side, we have SBA products that to guarantee loans for people looking to do some exporting. And so we really try to work with people on that as well. And so I guess, yeah, that's kind of it, Cathy. We're a relationship bank, and we kind of want to have a full company and personal relationship with the clients we're working with.
Perfect. Well, what kind of support is offered during the life of a commercial loan or an SBA loan? Are there reporting requirements, or does a borrower just get their money and they go off and you don't see them again until the loan is paid off? I mean, what type of outreach or contact do you have with your existing borrowing clients?
You're making me laugh. Do they just take the money and run? Well, sure.
They live their lives, and you don't see them again.
They pick up Robin. Of course.
When they leave the house. Yeah.
Yeah, we absolutely do have, as part of our loan agreements, no matter what size the loan is, at a minimum, people's annual tax returns are required, as well as updated personal financial statements. And so, at a minimum, we're talking with you at least once a year. When I talk to people, I want to go over, okay, so here's the business plan you gave me in order for me to underwrite my loan. How are you tracking to that plan? And then just stay on top of that for a couple years. With the larger clients I have, and we're talking, relationships in excess of $1 million, $3 million in SBA loans, I'm talking to them and collecting financial information quarterly. And so, they're going to hear from me and get support from me on a quarterly basis, whether they want it or not. But most people really do value that input. And it gives me a chance too to say, how are your treasury management products working for you? Has so-and-so from the branch contacted your sister-in-law yet? I mean, that sort of check in to make sure the whole banking relationship is working.
Well, on the other hand, so I can see once you've approved someone for financing, you are going to stay pretty much in their back pocket, because I know it's important as a lender to know where your borrower is. Maybe if you see some concerning trends, you might be able to offer some coaching or get in there and be proactive about what's happening. Because sometimes as a business owner, when it's happening to you and you're in the middle of it, it's hard for you to rise above and see the trends that are happening. Whereas with a lender or a technical assistance provider, they're able to get the 20,000 foot view and to say, hey, you're heading in the wrong direction, or you're heading for trouble. Let's get you turned around here. And let me give you my 2 cents worth. But in the rare event that you have to decline a credit request, what do you do? I mean, what do you do with a borrower who you can't help at this time?
Well, all of us at the bank are going to try to do a second review on that. Take from the request as is. I want $100,000. And if the way it's structured is not going to get approved, I always try to be honest with somebody up front about that, because who wants to be put through 3 weeks and then hear no? That's just not okay. And so if I have a feeling, by reviewing it up front, knowing that, this is not going to get approved, I first, can we lower the loan amount? Can we add in another guarantor? Can we have extra collateral? Try a number of different things to make it work. Mm-hmm. And luckily, most of requests do work once they're, prepared to go down a little on the loan amount and things like that. There are some reasons at a commercial bank like ours that are just non-starters. And one of that is, a low credit score below our policy. Mm-hmm. And so in those situations, I typically look to make referrals to some of the other partners on our panel today. Perfect. And they've been great, and it works out really well. So always giving 3 names of other people they can check with.
Yeah, I find that when I have to tell someone no, if you give that person options, then you've done the best you can. You just don't stop at no. You say, I can't help you, but this one, or this one, I think can give you some help. So let's switch over with that segue. Let's switch over to Karen and say, Karen, how does SNAP Financial Access support businesses if they're declined from a commercial bank? And is that a requirement before you support these commercial borrowers?
It's not always a requirement. It is a requirement, however, if you're coming to us for an SBA loan that's over $20,000. But for the rest of our funds, we do not require that. But the majority of our clients have been turned down elsewhere. So we've got lots of systems in place to help. First of all, we want to assess exactly what happened. Why were you turned down? Mm-hmm. And take a look at, do we have programs internally that can help you build capacity? So you can either work with us and apply to get a loan from us, or we're happy to work with you and send you off back to your bank. I mean, that's important. It's a choice for the borrower, for them to make who they want to apply to. It's not always to us. So that's why a lot of our services are free and paid for with grants. They're here for supporting the community, not always ending up in a loan for us. So some, are denials. A lot of them are credit related, like Robin was saying. And short of a bankruptcy within the last year, and some serious judgments on a credit report, like say there's some outstanding child support or for taxes, those clients, we ask them to take care of those things first. We won't fund no matter what when those things are present. But we've got a lot of programs. We have a certified financial counselor that's on staff as a part of our Women's Business Center. Mm-hmm. He spends a lot of time teaching, now moved to online teaching, dealing with the basics of budgeting, and some of that household budgeting, capacity building kind of translates over into business budgeting as well. Credit reports and how to read them and how to utilize your credit responsibly in order to rapidly raise your score if you want to go back to your bank or work with us. those are some of the strategies we work with with people. We have sometimes people come to us, especially our refugee and immigrant clients, where they don't have very much of a credit score at all due to a lack of history. And so we work with them with some credit building products that we have developed with local banks in order for them to develop a credit score so that they are bankable and then fundable. So there's lots of different ways we work with people. One of the major killers right now for people is massive student loan debt. And so that's really a hard thing. I mean, when somebody is wanting to be funded and all other signs point to go, and then they've got this crazy amount of student loan debt, perhaps they're in the wrong repayment program, and there's a lot of myths and lots of dead-end paths that people get on with student loan repayment. We've spent a lot of time and money getting our counselor unbiased, accurate information in order to be able to help people deal with that so that they can get into the right repayment plan that's not just going to kill their household budget. Because we look at the global budget. We don't just look at the business, we look at the household as well. And so that's where some of these things start to come into play. So there's lots we can do when someone's declined, but it's not mandatory that they have a decline letter when they come to us.
You know, I hadn't thought about student debt, but it sounds like you take a very holistic view of the business, not necessarily the business, but the owner of the business. And I didn't realize that you provided that type of technical support too, about trying to rearrange personal debt and get them into the right repayment plan on the student debt. So I'm learning new stuff all the time. So thank you, Karen.
Sure.
So tell me, is SNAP a mission lender? And if it is, what does that mean?
We are a mission lender. All CDFIs are mission lenders. CDFIs, community development financial institutions, are backed by federal grants. And our mission is to meet lending gaps in the market that exist because of poor credit, because of systemic racism or inequality and things like that. So it is characterized by nature as being high risk lending. We loan based on, we really emphasize character as part of what we lend to, followed by capacity or cash flow. We, so like any lender, you're looking at the 5 C's, and everybody I think knows what they are, but I'll just say them here in case. We've got credit, collateral, capital, character, and cash flow. So nice. we weight character and cash flow over collateral or credit. So that's kind of how we look at it. So if we know you have the capacity to repay the loan based on your cash flow, and our lending takes some time. I mean, it's really rare that we get something turned around in less than 4 to 6 weeks. So, and if people have been working with us early and often, like we might have a relationship with them through our classes, through our coaching, through our budgeting, through our student loan debt programs. We start to kind of build that relationship with them. And so we've got an amazingly low default rate based on those personal relationships. So that's really what mission lending is about. We take chances that maybe other institutions can't because they are for-profit and we're nonprofit, and we have a strong mission to provide opportunity for people in need.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Karen. I have to ask, I have a question coming in on the chat. First of all, just if you could raise your hands, because for Darren and Robin, and Karen, if you would answer verbally, do you have Spanish-speaking staff members that people can call in and speak and talk to? If you do, please raise your hand and tell me, Karen, do you have Spanish-speaking staff members?
We do not, but we do have a system in place where we provide translation and interpreters free of charge. So You're welcome to contact me directly or find us on the website, on our website.
All right, thank you. And I don't see hands from the other 2 panelists, so I'm assuming they do not as well. And then I also, yes.
I'm so sorry, I couldn't find my raise hand button.
Oh no, I was just telling you to do it like this.
Old school
Zoom button. Yeah, no, absolutely, we do at the bank.
Okay, thanks, Robin.
People that speak just lots of different languages at the bank. So absolutely, we can put somebody in touch with a language speaker that they're comfortable with.
All right, thank you. And then Karen, I have another one coming in saying any sources to refinance student loans that would get a lower a lower interest rate. I think Business Impact, I'm sorry, Darren, do you do that as well? Help people with their student loan debt? Do you know?
No, but similar to the previous question, though, with what Karen was saying, we also have like a language and interpretation service.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. So Karen, do you have any input
Yep.
about refinancing, any sources to refinance student loan debt?
We don't refinance student loan debt. We provide counseling about getting yourself in a more advantageous payment plan, and also fighting if payments have been going to the wrong place, but we don't finance any refinancing of that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm going to skip a couple of questions because I see we have only 9 more minutes to go on our panel. So I think what I'd like to do, I'm just looking real quick. I was going to ask you if each one of you, if you can give it some thought, if you have 2 to 3 suggestions for business owners to consider that need to happen in order to help small businesses become sustainable during these times. So if you could think of maybe 2 or 3 things you throw out to businesses in general saying, we're in this pandemic, we've been adversely impacted, give me some advice. Karen, do you feel comfortable if I start with you? Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
Sure. I had the opportunity to kind of practice for this because Cathy and I were talking before the seminar began.
Oh, you know, Karen, hang on one second. Can everybody hear her okay? You got real, I can hear you, but I mean, I can hear.
Any better?
No, but I can still hear you. So go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I'm speaking as loudly as I can.
You're good.
Let me see if I can do one more thing.
Okay.
Oh, you know, it says I'm on buds. Okay. All right, great. So I think Cathy mentioned in my bio that I specialize in advising food-based businesses because I'm a former restaurateur. So one of the first things that I started to do when the pandemic hit was if my clients did not have a gift card program, we sent a team of people out, like, get on a gift card program. People who love you, want to support you. They don't want you to be gone when the pandemic's over. They want to give you money. So make it easy for them to give you money, even if they're not comfortable coming in and eating at your place of business. So that was one of the things we did, whether it's food-based or retail. Make sure you've got a gift card program in place for yourself or for your clients if you are a service provider that's on the call. The other thing is that I think I touched on it earlier. One of my most successful adapters during this time is somebody who owns an ice cream shop. And because in-person sales were so curtailed, she switched to a lot of wholesale operations and selling of bulk items. So what happened is that her revenue shot up, but her profit margin went down between the wholesale operation and the retail sales because there's much higher markup on the retail sales. So she's taking a look at how she's going to operate this winter and is really de-emphasizing retail because she's worried it's not going to be there. And she's also focusing on wholesale and purchasing more equipment so she can explore that part of her business. So taking a look at where you are on the supply chain. We have a welding school in the area that's also been taking a look at that by fabricating pieces that they used to buy elsewhere and then providing them to other people in the market rather than waiting for them to be shipped and delayed. So I think there's lots that people can do to become sustainable during these times. And so there.
Well, thank you. So basically it's continue with the product or the service that you offer. Just try to tailor it so that it can still be effective. You can still sell it. So either if it's via a gift card or going into bulk sales instead of in-store, or starting to fabricate your own parts instead of relying on other people to do it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Karen. Robin, would you like to go next? 2 or 3 pieces of advice?
Well, as you've heard me say a couple times, I think it gets back to the plan, and it starts with getting your financial projections in order and truly penciling out a worst case scenario. At a minimum, find break even, and then what costs can you cut, right? And still be in business. Does it mean going to the landlord, negotiating a lower rent, everything? Nobody likes to make hard decisions about cutting costs because a lot of times it's involving labor and employees that mean a lot to you. And so I don't envy anybody in that position, but the choice is between remaining sustainable for those employees to come back to, or keeping people on and maybe not making it, to the other side of this. And then I think, like Karen was saying, a lot of it is just thinking outside the box. Did you sell online before? No, try to sell things online. And the restaurant situation, I have restaurant clients too, but they didn't have a very big to-go business. Well, now they have relationships with DoorDash and Uber Eats, and so I think the people that are making it during these really difficult times have been creative and thought of other ways of making things come together. And last, I guess what I would say as a banker is don't overborrow. It's hard to pay back money when, cash flow is negative.
You make a real good point, Robin. It's very important that I think a business owner knows what their profit margins are on their certain products or services. And just to maybe cut out those ones where you don't have a very big profit margin. I remember one time as an example, I banked a guy who owned a dollar store. And he was real excited when he brought in those balloons, those Mylar balloons that you fill up with, helium. But the problem is his profit margin went way down on those Mylar balloons because he had to have a full-time employee dedicated just to that one little stand. And they blew up balloons all day. Well, visibly, you think, oh, I'm selling so many balloons. Look at all this money I'm making. But you just didn't realize there was a lot of labor costs. It's demanding. So just little things like that. You have to think about a little bit outside the box. So thank you, Robin. So how about you, Darren? Do you have any pieces of advice that you would give to a small business owner?
Yeah, definitely. So like Cathy, I think what you were saying basically in a sense of like bootstrapping, being able to be creative in how you look at, the entirety of your business and your business model and your revenue streams and, where can you cut costs? Where might you be able to get creative and add an additional revenue stream that you hadn't even thought about before? How can you shift your model to the current climate, right? And does that mean pivoting and selling food to go versus, having people dine in? Absolutely. There's one business owner who was basically a bar that was his primary source of revenue, and he shifted to becoming a predominantly to-go Cambodian takeout restaurant. So it's very, very creative. So yeah, I think in general, kind of echo what Robin was saying too, is really getting a sense of your cash flow and your finances. And that's something, again, that I would, strongly recommend, talking to a coach or a mentor to, if you don't know how to do that. And if you have any questions on, kind of where you're at to figure that out. That's one of the biggest issues for most businesses, is not having a sense of their finances and their cash flow. And that's detrimental, I think, to being successful for a small business. I mean, there's lots of other things too. I mean, there's all sorts of different types of creative partnerships that I've seen that some of these small businesses have done to kind of expand their network. There are cost-cutting measures of being able to, kind of look at their break-even point and being, all right, can I cut this? Can I change this? And then, and then basically just, I think, finding out if that, other step of, financing is necessary or possible.
Right. Perfect. Yeah, I think the takeaway is don't be married to whatever your vision of your business is. Try to step outside the box and see, be a little more, creative. So at this time, it's about 4:30. We do have one remaining question on the chat box about crowdfunding. So do you mind, Darren, trying to address that in the chat box? Are you able to see it?
Yeah, I already sent a message back to our moderator. I would say probably, you know, like the question was, if I believe, if I see this correctly, was about social justice crowdfunding. I would say, you know, if that person can just send me an email, I'm happy to send them some links.
All right. So at this time, I just wanted to thank the panelists. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day, and the advice I think was very, very valuable. I think the message out there to our audience is there's so much support. Please take advantage of it. It'll only benefit you, and we're here to help. So thank you so much for your time today. And I don't know if we're just going to be ended by our moderator.